So it's a sheer water, virtually completely intact. Obviously needs a certain amount of preparation. But they're sort of supreme masters of flying over the ocean, really.
Different birds are always associated with prophetizing and seeing into the future, so seeing things that we can't see yet. I suppose there's a romanticism there that I find inspiring. So they're like sort of personal votive offerings in a way, or altars. My work draws on all sorts of religion, astronomy, natural history, various science to a degree, birth and death, skulls and eggs. You can't have one without the other, life and death. So yeah, I like all the big subjects. It sort of draws from anywhere really, anywhere that I can get a different layer that I can interject there. So the last trip was South Harris in the Outer Hebrides. The purpose is always to gather as much material as I can find really, so that involves a lot of beachcombing, walking, looking and collecting, and then bringing it all back to the studio really, where sometimes it just sort of sits for years, other times it gets used almost straight away, just depending on what I need for the next piece really. Both my parents were keen on natural history and wildlife, so you know that's where they like to go on holiday, so they took the kids. Obviously some of that has rubbed off on me, you know, I used to go walking and climbing there when I was a bit younger, so I suppose it's got a certain amount of nostalgic connection there, but mostly it's just the amazing landscape, and it's a good place to find stuff. The beaches aren't cleaned, you know, you can find little quiet tucked out of the way beaches where, you know, things gather and pile up. The West Coast is, to me anyway, it has a mythical resonance about it. The wildlife that lives there is, you know, is well adapted to that environment, so it survives in very hostile conditions sometimes, and you know, I find that inspiring. It's why I collect the sort of stuff that I collect, the bird skulls and bits of once living stuff. It's what I like to use in the art. It's the most important part of it, really.
Looks like a crow, long dead. Dirty habit, isn't it, really? Everything your mum told you not to do. But it's well dead. Great, good find.
I mean, these objects are full of mystery, to me anyway. I mean, they've all got their own sort of secret histories. A lot of the seabirds we don't fully understand even now, you know, what they're doing for the best part of 12 months out in the North Atlantic, or where they go, you know, all the migrations. Recently only some of the migrations have been understood, you know, some of the huge distances that these birds can travel to and how they sort of navigate. I mean, that's still relatively unknown. So there is sort of inherent mystery in there, you know. Some people sort of suggest that the birds use stars, you know, as sailors have done in the past, whether that's, I don't know, there are various theories. Smell is another one, you know, that they can smell differences in the oceans or whatever, or magnetic fields is another one. They use the Earth's magnetic field. It's nobody, I don't think anybody's quite cracked that yet. So again, that's a pretty impressive feat. So it's another reason why I like to use the sort of stuff that I use. Yeah, so all the bits that I found in Harris, they're all contained in their own boxes, dotted around the studio at the minute. So if I need to do a piece specific to the last trip, then I can be true to the place by using the objects that I collected there. Which again, to me is important, but to others, they won't necessarily realise that fact. Getting everything in here, and then I'm sort of free to sort of, if I need that photograph, or I think I can use that photograph or that piece, I've got it. And as you're working the piece up, you can find something that works. You bring them together, make the connection. You normally know if it's a good connection, and if it's good, it goes in the box. If it's bad, it doesn't get connected.
Nice.
Am I going to come across as a right weird fiddling with bits of dead stuff in his studio?
I get up pretty early. Usually the dog wakes up first and she wants to go out, so we'll probably go out for just maybe a couple of hours, just walk out from wherever I'm staying, have a look round, come back, have a bit of breakfast, think about where we're going to go for the rest of the day. Usually involves getting in the car and we'll drive off somewhere and spend the day within that place, looking around, then maybe move on, do the same again.
I didn't just want to paint, I wanted to incorporate the objects, the actual objects. So that sort of dictated really the direction that the work went. I mean, I think the first thing I did was stuck a feather on a painting, you know. Wasn't really satisfactory. So then I wanted to put a skull on there or something else, so then I had to build a box around it, and you end up building a lot of boxes. Yeah, so there's like some initial sketches in there of what I had in mind for the shape of the box. And then there's some of the random scribblings. And then it sort of begins to develop a bit more, just exploring different ideas of what I might use inside there, different arrangements of the cards. So by this stage I would have made the carcass of the box anyway, until eventually you sort of end up with something that looks more or less like what I've ended up with. And this central piece here is working out. I like the idea of like strata. It's like a way of showing deep time, so the layers of different rocks and minerals laid down over eons. This actually started off as like elements from the core of the earth up to heaven really, in that depth. So there's iron in there, there's little flecks of gold, which people think is at the earth's core. There's blood in there as well, different layers of sediments, sedimentary rocks in there. Then there's a small piece of tree which reaches up to heaven, which is in fact some blue flowers sealed in resin in the top there. So the strata is the way I like to use to sort of show deep time.
Get to the Atlantic.
Some of the seawater we collected, I'm hoping it's going to, the salt in it will react with the iron in some of the ground rock that I've put in there. So over time that should begin to rust and it'll permeate down through the other layers of rock, hopefully.
I usually like to collect a fair amount of the wool because it's useful to seal up the ends of the test tubes and the glass vials, because you can heat it once you pack it in, and then you can heat it, and as it burns all the lanolin oils, they condense into like a dark tarry sort of substance they distill into the test tube. Well, as you heat it, obviously it drives the oils off and they condense further up the tube, so you get like a dark tarry substance, which I just like. It's just something to pack in, you know, that holds the sands and the different strata or whatever it is I'm putting in the tubes.
I think so highly of the pieces that I find that I like to put them in cases that look a bit like reliquaries. Bits of saint used to be placed in. Like some of these cards across the top here, these were like Catholic prayer cards, which I've sort of taken them and I've doctored them a little bit, so I've superimposed my own imagery and some of my own words over the top, so you can just see the ghost of the saint or whoever these cards were in tribute to, and I've put my own natural history images over the top there.
I mean, a lot of the titles just come straight out of the Bible. I like the language of it. I mean, my granddad was very religious on my mum's side, but she sort of rebelled against that really, because he was a bit, you know, over the top. So she didn't force anything on the kids. To be honest, I've never. I don't know, it's a bit contradictory, I suppose. I mean, I'm fascinated by the Bible and, you know, the language, the way you know, the whole thing is a bit crazy when you read some of it. You know, it's crazy is not the right word. Just I don't know. It's just out there. You know, it's just out there. And it's informed so much stuff, and it's ingrained. You know, it's like even if you're not religious, it's ingrained in you, isn't it? All the Bible stories, everybody knows them. You know, whether you believe them or not, you know them. For some reason they surface in the work. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why. Religion's ever so strong on the islands here. Nothing opens on a Sunday. Everything is, you know, if you're frowned on if you sort of do any work on a Sunday, you know. So it's everything, it's all very tight. Southern Islands are Catholic. Yeah, on Barrow you've got like roadside shrines and all sorts of stuff. Big statues of the Virgin Mary and all sorts of stuff. Which I mean, Catholic symbolism I think is fascinating. You know, I'm sort of a bit of a sucker for that.
Yeah.
You know, relics and reliquaries and that sort of stuff, you know. Yeah, buy into that. So, you know, private worship I think is. So I guess, you know, that's what I do, you know, I tie this sort of worship in with, for some reason, more recognisable.
And by this sort of worship, you mean the nature?
Well, nature worship, yeah.
And do humans fit into that?
No.
No.
No. They probably should do, but that's just the way I am, you know. Even though I am human, obviously. No, we just seem to have a talent for screwing a lot of stuff up, really. Don't know, maybe a bit gloomy, but seems to me that's what we do most of the time. Either quickly or slowly, you know. And I don't know where that'll end, really. Because I've got this thing about seabirds, I suppose. That's why I find, you know, I find them most fascinating of all wildlife. Just because of the environment that they live in and how they survive, you know. And especially when you go, you know, if you go out on a boat or whatever, and it's like, you know, grey, cold, freezing, you know, you look out and it's like a little storm petrel or something no bigger than a sparrow, you know, lives out there for virtually all its life. You just think, you know, how can you do it?
So do you feel that sort of a duty to them?
Yeah.
What is it that's moving you? You know?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, just this, you know, and everything.
Yeah, there's like sort of personal votive offerings in a way, or altars, if you like.
That's why I put them into relics, you know, into reliquaries, you know. I mean, it's a basic way of doing it, but it sort of works for me because, you know, they deserve to be venerated. It's just my personal view, you know. It's important, otherwise you just end up destroying everything if you don't respect it, you know. Perhaps that's the main thing that comes across then, you know. Perhaps that is the fragility of what's around. Mysticism side of it, the religious sort of beliefs, the science part of it. It's all, you know, it's all part of it, isn't it?
This tends to be the storage area for anything that's been finished, so
It's quite interesting, isn't it, how the cross was originally a pagan symbol.
well, I think Christianity sort of absorbed a lot of pagan beliefs, didn't it, and sort of built churches on top of things that were originally sacred sites for pre-Christians. So it's all mixed up together, isn't it? That's what I find quite fascinating, really. I've done a few in violin cases. One thing adopts certain traits from the other and it all rolls along. That's all where we went. That's all the Sound of Harris. That's all an old 19th century chart, nautical chart. Jonah in the whale. It does try and make connections with the universe and astronomical alignments in a way, I suppose. Quite why it's really just a relatively sort of clumsy attempt at linking where we all live on this planet with everything else. I mean, many cultures have looked to the stars and made their own alignments, built their own monuments. That's what I'm doing, you know. I'm just trying to sort of widen everything out, so it's not necessarily just a bird skull on a beach, you know. It's part of life. It's part of all of our lives, and all of our lives are spent on this planet, you know, spinning around in space with all the fixed stars around us. So it's no more than that. It's just an attempt to broaden.
It's everything, really, isn't it? You know, I mean, we're part of that, you know. So it's just the next level out, and it's the furthest level out as far as we know we can go, you know. So it has to be relevant, doesn't it, to to what I'm doing, it's relevant. It has been relevant for all past cultures as well, hasn't it? You know, everybody's looked at the stars for one reason or another.
We're all made of the same stuff, we're all made of star stuff, so everything is made of the same stuff, so there is that connection there already, so I'm just trying to enhance that, really, or use it. I just feel I have to use it in some way in the work. I think curiosity is it's a good thing to have. I don't pretend to understand any of it, the science or the natural history, I don't understand it. But that doesn't stop me sort of using it and learning about it,
One, that one to me is like constellations, isn't it, really? It's like the sort of the rim of the earth. That one is just fairly, I mean, it's okay, but out of the two, there's no competition. So that one gets to stay, and that one gets to come home too. I think it must just be purely aesthetic. I mean, either the thing is right in its shape and its colour, or it's not. And if it's not, I know I won't use it in the future, so. I'm sort of got a lot of self-doubt anyway, so that I can always, even if I think something's good at that point, I can later on I'll think, oh no, it's not right, and then the next day I think, well, yeah, no, it is right. So it's painful, Things McFarlane said I thought were quite, things that hadn't really occurred to me, because he brings that sort of academic mind to it. I thought that was quite interesting. I had to look up a lot of the words that he used, just to get them clear in my head, which made me giggle.
People have found the work interesting, which is great, hugely gratifying, and it helps me to produce more of it. Oh, it's always satisfying. I always get a huge kick out of selling work, mainly because it means that somebody's connected in some way with it. How they've connected with it, I don't know. That's between them and the piece they've bought. But I know where most of those pieces were picked up, so I've got my own history in there. That's personal to me. Nobody else will have that. So they're bringing their own set of opinions to it, or getting something from it that perhaps I don't.
Fuzzy, you'll probably just feel.
Why do I feel I'm sort of compelled to make the stuff? I keep finding stuff and I keep having to use it. Hopefully it conveys something to the people who look at it. Well, I make it for me, that's why I make these things. And I hope that, they connect in some way to other people, and that it just, perhaps it changes or helps somebody think about something in a different way.
Well, that's probably why I make them, because I'm trying to sort of, in a sort of very futile way, make some sort of sense of everything around me. There can't be many other places really where you get everything like this. But it's totally futile, I know that, but I have to keep doing it. I don't know what I'd be doing myself if I didn't have purpose. It's a reason.
It's an obsession to get it as good as you can get it. Yeah, and so you always think the next piece is going to be the best piece. If you didn't think that, you wouldn't carry
water just looks so inviting, doesn't it? The colour of it is just amazing.